I'm back with another spooky story. We're finally getting to Nigeria this.
So me, my brother, and my mother go to Nigeria for a funeral.
There's a specific reason why us Caribbeans and Africans, growing up, they tell us not to eat at strangers' house.
I get paid every day. I get paid just to say I get paid. Money coming to me easily, money coming in repeatedly, money coming in and needing me, money coming in just money coming, it's just money coming in frequently, money coming in to be with me, money coming in secretly.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Spooky Sundays. I am your host Jenny. Today I'm taking you back to the motherland, particularly Nigeria. So I hope you have the lights on. I hope you have a good drink, something to snack on, because these stories are scary. They're worse than the one before. So I will see you in the comment section. Let me know what you think.
I'm back with another spooky story. We're finally getting to Nigeria this time. Did y'all know that people can give birth to snakes in Nigeria? Spooky story time, and you might not want to watch this one at night. So the person who submitted the story, we're gonna call her Twin. So Twin says that her aunt, who is her dad's younger brother's wife, gave birth to a snake in human form. So it goes like this. Her aunt, who was pregnant with her fourth child at the time, she always works home at night. In the village where she comes from, there's a lot of trees and stuff. So her mom would always tell her, stop walking around at night. So finally, the day of delivery comes and her aunt gives birth to this boy. And immediately, Queen's mom saw this boy and knew something was up. His head wasn't shaped very well, and there was something about his skin. The mom's looking at this baby just having chills. And Queen says this is not the first time that someone has given birth to that kind of baby. So this is pretty normal. So after the mom came to the ward and saw the child, she noticed a lot of things. One of the things she noticed was that the child's forehead was like very soft. It's like your finger can like visually pierce into its head. Like imagine this being soft. So after an hour, his forehead hardens up, and now this is when things get creepy. So the aunt ended up getting discharged and she went home. This is when a lot of things started happening. So since this is a common thing, when women would give birth to these monsters, right, they would just discard them. And other people started telling the aunt, people were coming up to her saying, your child is not a child, it's a snake. And the earlier you throw it away, the better it'll be for you. Because if the child stays too long, it will be impossible to discard it. So at the time, the aunt and the uncle, the parents of this child, didn't listen to anybody. They both decided to keep their baby. But suddenly, their eldest child in the home just started getting drastically ill. And when Queen's mom heard of all of this, like, the oldest child is on his deathbed. So when Queen's mom was hearing about all of this, she knew what was going on. Because remember, she was one of the first people to see the baby at the hospital to say that that baby is actually a snake, or that there was something off with the toddler. So when Queen's mom found out about the older brother getting sick, she connected the dots and said, oh hell nah, just come live with me, son. So Queen's mom already figured out that the baby, or the snake, was actually going to unalive the older brother. So the older brother came to live with Queen's mother instead. And after 4 months of being there, he finally recovered. Her mom gave him some anointing oil and prayed for him. Older brother is back to normal. So at this point, it's 4 months since that baby's been born. Even though it's been 4 months, the baby's neck still wasn't strong enough to support itself. This baby's neck was still basically like flailing all around. And they would take the baby to the doctor, and the doctor would say that the baby's fine, like there's no default. But Queen says, sis, if you saw that child, she said its skin was shining like a snake. He had weird hair, and his eyes also were just very strange. She said the child was kind of beautiful, but in a creepy way. And funny enough, every time someone tries to warn the aunt that the baby might actually be a snake, the baby would just start crying, the aunt would get distracted, and that would just be that. So Queen's aunt is a very chubby woman and very beautiful. She started drying up like someone was literally draining her blood. Stuff started happening. She's having weird dreams about snakes and stuff. So one day she goes to the market to sell some farm produce, and she had her child with her, a Fulani man. And she says Fulani is a tribe from Nigeria, and they are very powerful herbalists. So this Fulani man approaches her while she's holding the baby, and he said to the aunt, what are you doing with such a big snake by your side? And the aunt was like, what snake? And he said, the child you are carrying is a snake. You need to go get rid of it before it gets rid of you. So at this point, this is when the auntie / mother of the child starts really getting scared. And because this story is so flipping long, like I'm still scrolling, I'm gonna have to do a part 2. It's been a while since I've done part 1s and part 2s on my page. I think you guys can wait. Let me know what you guys think about this story. If you guys think that they kept the baby, let me know in the comments. If you guys think they got rid of the baby, let me know in the comments. As a matter of fact, let me know what would you do if you found out that the baby that you carried for 9 months that you just gave birth to happens to be a demon spawn. Would you get rid of it or would you keep it even if it's at your own detriment? Alright, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys follow me on this here app, duh. And follow me on Instagram just so that I know that it's real, duh. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more longer, better spooky stories. Alright, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl. Okay, part 2. So after the guy asked her, why are you holding a snake? And this woman is holding her baby and the panic is really starting to kick in. So she then runs home and goes and tells her husband exactly what this guy just told her. And the next day they decided to go see another herbalist who told them the exact same thing. So it turns out that the child was a snake, and not just an ordinary snake, a king among snakes. In the night, he lasses them with some sleeping charm. Once he does that, he then turns into a snake and then he sneaks outside to catch rats and mice. To eat, of course. And also swim inside the well in the middle of the compound. And as the herbalist is explaining this to the mother, she goes, oh, well, no wonder whenever she woke up, the child's stomach was always huge. The herbalist instructed them not to take the child home and that they should find a witch doctor that can safely discard of the baby. If not, if she goes back home with the baby, there will be some serious consequences. He warned them that the child will unalive the mother, and on the day of her burial, the father will also pass away, and then the snake itself will vanish. So the mom and dad go on this journey to find a witch doctor, and boom, they find one, but one problem, she does not want to work with them because the child is too old, thus too powerful. So after much pleading, he accepted for a very high price. He asked them to bring all of the child's belongings, a white fowl for the sacrifices. Then he did some incantation and put a necklace around the child's neck, and the necklace was to reduce its power. And then he proceeded on giving the mother something to drink, which was to break all ties between the mother and the child. And in the following morning, they set out to the river. So with all the ritual items, the rules are immediately she gives the child away, then she turns around and walks home and never looks back. No matter what happens, she is never supposed to look back. Because if she does, the child will come back home. So the following morning, she does just that. She gives the witch doctor the baby, turns front, and goes all the way home and never looks back. Meanwhile, the herbalist did some incantation, threw the baby's clothes into the river. Then there was a white hen that was used to distract the snake while he yeets the baby into the river. The child turned into a snake as it was distracted. The witch doctor was very quick because he got out of sight by the time it noticed. The witch doctor also told her do not sleep in the same house because the child will come back to try to unalive her. She winded up sleeping at her mother's house instead that night. And there was a lot of activities going on outside the house that night. Like a lot of heavy winds. And not to mention the following day when they checked the well, it was basically dried up. But it wasn't drying season yet, so that's odd. A few days later, the mom's skin becomes very dry and very itchy. And when she saw a native doctor, he told her that basically while she was breastfeeding, she didn't realize that the child's saliva was poisonous and that the child was also sucking out blood from her, basically making her dry. He gave her some herbal soap, and Queen just recalls seeing her auntie cry while she's just like itching her skin. Queen, the person who submitted the story, says, and Queen says that taught her a lesson. If she were to become pregnant, no staying out late, no carrying of random children. Yeah, y'all shouldn't be doing that. Because a snake child can possess a child in the womb also. She said that this happened in Benue State, Castina Ala, her hometown. Benue State, is it French? Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. That's it for part 2. You guys bullied the fuck out of me, but like it's out now. Alright, y'all. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. Is it even real if you're not? Like, what? What the f? I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl.
So me, my brother, and my mother go to Nigeria for a funeral. And Nigerian funerals, like, that shit's a party, fiesta, like day and night, just music blaring, mad people. There's probably like 5,000 people there. And what are the odds one person's gonna know all 5,000? Like, I probably knew like 17 people there. People just show up for the vibes, for the food, for the music, like for the food. So we're vibing, dancing, celebrating life, and someone comes up to my mom and like touches her stomach and like starts rubbing it. See, if that happens in Canada, okay, the person's weird. You kind of just look at them funny and like, the fuck, leave me alone. In Nigeria, you better catch that person and ask them exactly what they're trying to do. Like, what type of curse did you try to put on me right there? So my mom's trying to grab her. Sis is weaseling through the crowd, into the crowd of 5,000 people, nowhere to be seen again. My mom forgets about it. We go on about dancing. So later that night, we're all chilling again. You know the vibes, you know us. And my mom gets super sick. And we're thinking like, oh, just like food poisoning, right? So she starts throwing up, but at a point she's like throwing up bile. Like it's bad, it's concerning. So someone calls my grandma, and my grandma, she missions to get there. She's pedal to the metal, floors it, gets to where we are in like 20 minutes, even though it's like a 45-minute journey. So the next morning, my grandma sees us to the airport, and at this point, like my mom's still super sick. We're like pushing her in the wheelchair to try to get her from terminal to terminal, just trying to make sure we leave this country. Because a weekend, the heat, I was ready to roll in a snowbank at that point. So as the plane takes off, look over at my mom. She's looking a good 2 out of 10. As we fly over the Atlantic Ocean to get out of Africa, I look over at her. She's looking 10 out of 10. She's smiling, happy, joking around. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So then we get to Canada, and my grandma calls us, trying to check on her daughter. Like, how is she? How is she? My mom, she takes the phone. She's laughing. Haha, made it. So my grandma, super relieved, tells us that she had gone to an oracle maybe like a week before the funeral, and it was prophesized that a young lady would be killed or would die during the funeral's procession, like over like the week that the funeral happens. So as my mom got sick, everyone that knows of this prophecy is thinking. So honestly, my theory is that if we would have stayed in Nigeria, which was entirely possible because our flight got canceled and I had to pay $4,000 to get us a new flight the next day to get us out of that continent. If we stayed in Nigeria, this would have been a completely different story.
There's a specific reason why us Caribbeans and Africans, growing up, they tell us not to eat at strangers' house. Not to eat at anybody's house, to be honest. That was so embedded in me that till this day, I will not eat at people's house. Not only is it because that not everybody is clean, but it's also because that you don't know what that person put in that food. Scary story time. So there was this guy, let's call him Leo. So Leo had this friend, and this was like his best friend. Let's call him Sam. And this is a real quick story time. Sam and Leo basically like grew up together. They were super close, like the bestest of friends. Sam had a younger sister. Let's call her Julia. Now, at this point of, no, Ma, I'm fine. I just came from, Sam's house. Julie had made me some food. And so he finally explained to her what happened the night before. And immediately she's like, don't eat that food. He's like, what do you mean? Like, everybody ate the food. And she's like, did she make your plate? He's like, yeah. And she's like, do not touch that food. I don't know what it is, but I can feel that you're not supposed to eat that food. As a matter of fact, bring the food to me. And so that's what he did. He brought the food to his mom. And his mom is like, if I'm right, I don't ever want you to go over there anymore. I'm not saying don't be friends with Sam anymore, but you need to cut ties with his sister. He just like brushes her off like, yeah, she always talking. However, less than 2 hours later, his mom calls him to her room. And lo and behold, the plate of food that was freshly made that day was full of maggots, bugs, flies, any type of critters that you can think of. The food was full of it. Now, this would be normal had it been food that was left out for days. But this food was cooked a few hours before. Mom was like, that girl tried to get you.
So growing up in my household, my grandma always said, don't open your fucking doors after a certain time of night. Because after a certain time of night, there ain't shit out there but trouble. And my mom would always say, during a certain time of night, she was like, honey, there ain't nothing open but a hospital or a pair of legs. So I say all that to say, I was recently reading After the Rain, this graphic novel about like Nigerian and African folklore. And in the back of the book, there's this author, Nnedi Okorafor. Sorry if I butchered your name. The graphic novel was created by a guy named John Jennings. However, he took from her short story and made this beautiful work of art. So in the back, she talks about the inspiration of the story, because the story starts off, the main character is an American police officer. She goes back home to a Nigerian village to visit her grandmother and her great auntie. And during this rainstorm, she hears a knock at the door. And you know, in them African villages, it's very mystical. And they're like, don't answer, no knocks at the door at a certain time of night. But of course, her not being superstitious per se, she don't believe it. So she goes to answer the door, and it's a little boy with his head half blown off. And he speaks to her in like an Igbo language. And then he says, tag, you're it. And then pretty much puts the spirits on it. And then a couple days later, when she sees the boy in the village or the marketplace, he is completely fine now. And now, for the main character, supernatural shit starts to plague her, and the spirits start to come after her. So back to the back of the page, where the true story it originates from. So pretty much this woman, Nnedi Okorafor, she's like a Chicago professor. She was talking to one of her co-workers who's like the head of liberal arts, and she told her how her friend, who's Ghanaian, was visiting her home village from the States. And one evening, he heard a knock at the door. He goes to open it, and there's a boy in the doorway with half of his head blown off. He slams it, of course, because that's some scary shit. But of course, he opens it again to see, like, is my mind playing tricks on me? And the boy is gone. The next day, he saw the boy in a field playing soccer perfectly fine. Now, of course, I don't care if you're a believer of stuff like that. I'm not here to make a believer out of you. But growing up, I was always told, like, you know, you never whistle outside after night. That's like the basic shit everybody knows. And, you know, some people will whistle and nothing will happen. But I was just always raised on, like, you know, after a certain time, that door is locked and you ain't coming and you ain't going. And I love how the book made me realize no matter how far apart we are, a lot of us still have the same superstitions, and we know better than to answer that door at certain times of night. Because it's just something about them early spirit hours you just don't fuck with.
Hey Dad, did you know that Africa... Son, stop calling it that. It's disrespectful to our motherland. What? I just said Africa. Except that's not the original name. It's Alkebulan, meaning the mother of mankind or Garden of Eden. Are you serious? How did I not know this? I told you, son. Question everything. The Matrix be matrixing and truth gets lost in history. Huh. So when did it change to Africa? It's said to be around the late 17th century and initially only used to refer to the northern part of Africa, Alkebulan. Around that time, the continent had been colonized by the Europeans, and they then influenced the change of identity from Alkebulan to Africa. But why Africa out of all the other names? Well, apparently, son, before the Europeans settled for the word Africa, it was called a bunch of different names from Libya to Ethiopia and 2 other names that I don't know how to say. But I'd be lying if I told you the true reason for the change. No one knows the source for sure, just mere theories. Dad, you are blowing my mind right now. It's not me, son. It's Jake Eisen. He's helping people break the illusion of objective reality.